If you're going to do just one thing different this year to improve your financial future, you're going to want to listen to this video and you're going to want to do this. If you want to move towards a better financial future for yourself and your family, but you're not just sure where to start, this is the place for you. I'm Steve and welcome to Engineering Wealth. So let's get started by squashing the first myth when it comes to personal finances, especially when you're getting started, and that's budgeting. Throw the concept of budgeting out the window. Throw the concept of giving yourself a weekly allowance for, food, lodging, transportation. People who are rich, people who are wealthy, they're not giving themselves an allowance every week to go out and live their lives. So for you getting started, it doesn't really make sense to do that. It really brings with it and trains you in some bad thinking habits that are going to hinder your ability to achieve financial success. One of the big problems with budgeting is, let's say you set aside $300 a month for that car payment that you have. And for some people, it's significantly higher. The problem with budgeting is that you see that as an expense that's acceptable every single month. And at the end of your car payment, you finally got that car paid off, and you're looking at your budget. Your budget now allows you $500 for transportation. So what do? Well, in your head, you've pre-programmed yourself on this budget concept that the $500 is okay, and that now you have an extra $500, and that's towards transportation, and therefore that entitles you to go out and get a new vehicle and get a new $500 a month car payment. So what I'm proposing is a different way of looking at your finances and your financial situation. This will only take about 10 minutes a month. It's a great way to get your spouse involved or your significant other if they aren't involved with the finances of the house. And if you're alone or by yourself, this is a way to sort of reset your framework as well on how you're thinking about money, and think about it more so the way that people who are already wealthy and rich think about it. So to follow what the wealthy do, the wealthy really know how to track their money. They know what they're spending money on, they know what they aren't spending money on, and they know what all of their money is doing. So for this, I suggest that you start tracking your money and not your spending. And what I mean by that is looking at your net worth. So start tracking your money and not your budget. Take 10 minutes a month to track your net worth. This will fundamentally change your mindset to looking from short term, which is what budgeting is really focused on, to looking more long term. Now, in order to get rich or to get wealthy, really you need time on your hands. There's another option, which is luck, but I'm not going to put my eggs in the basket of being lucky to get rich or wealthy. So for this, let's just assume that we're going to go with the fact that we have a time horizon to work with, and that's what's going to allow us to build our wealth. So what is your net worth anyways, and what does that really mean? The way I like to think about it is, if I sold everything that I had and just left myself with one duffel bag, and once I'd sold everything, cashed out of all my investments, sold the house, everything, and put that money in that duffel bag and stood out on the curb, how much money would be in that duffel bag? Now, I'm not talking about small things like your couch, your sofa, your TV. Think of assets that are, vehicles, cars, boats, and bigger. To simplify things. When you go into the bank, they aren't going to be worried about how fancy your couch is or the designer dog you bought. They're going to be looking at more of those tangible assets, so your vehicles, cars, rental properties, things of that nature. Now, although I would be lying if I said that when I first started doing this in my 20s, that I wasn't pulling out my wallet and counting up all the change and the bills that I had in my wallet, because sometimes that made the difference between turning a profit that month and increasing my net worth and decreasing my net worth. Now, I like to use a spreadsheet program to track my net worth. It allows me to put some formulas in there and, forecast out for the year. But really, if you want to start on a basic level, you just need a sheet of paper and you need to start listing your assets and your liabilities. So assets are anything that you own that are yours, and liability is any debts or people that you have to pay. So you can start out by listing your bank accounts, your checking accounts, your savings accounts. If you got any investment accounts, your RSP accounts, your tax-free savings accounts, your Roth IRAs if you're in the US, any pensions that you have. So if you've got pensions at your company or otherwise, generally every year they'll give you a statement that says how much your pension is worth. You can stick that into that calculation as well for your assets. And then you want to look at cars, any other vehicles that you have, as well as any homes that you own. Now, with the assets, when you're talking vehicles and houses, be conservative with these numbers. You're not going to be tricking anybody or cheating anybody by, overestimating the value of the asset that you have. Also with your house, remember there are disposal costs with that. So even though the market value of your house might be $250,000, by the time you sell that and pay real estate fees and legal fees, you aren't going to get the $250,000 out of it. So make sure you're conservative with that, and that would be my advice when it comes to those numbers. When you go into a bank and you're looking for a loan and you're telling them your net worth, they are going to be fairly critical and conservative on those numbers. So if you've bought a brand new car and you're saying, I bought it for $29,000, the reality of that actually being worth $29,000 today is probably not there. Look online and see what they're actually selling for, and price it conservatively as such. That's the way the bank is going to evaluate it too when you go in to look for a loan or anything like that. The next category you're going to want to list is all your liabilities. These are all the debts that you owe. So these could be student loans. These could be lines of credit that are still open that you're carrying a balance on. These could be credit card debt. Now, if you are paying your credit card off every month, which you should be, don't worry about it. It's going to kind of balance out month to month. Your checking account will kind of, take the hit or whatever as you pay that off monthly. Now here you'd put your mortgage amount remaining if you've bought a house and you still have a mortgage portion to pay off. You'd put the outstanding balance there. So now you take all your liabilities, you add them up, and you take all of your assets and you add them up, and you deduct your liabilities from your assets. And that is your net worth. Now the goal with this is that you'll be able to see how all of your different assets and your liabilities are changing in value every month. Now if you're budgeting, all you're seeing is your spending, and you're spending on a pretty low level. You're not necessarily seeing your debt being paid off, interest coming in from investment accounts or otherwise, and you're not seeing that big picture. Now with your net worth, this is ultimately what you're looking to increase as you want to build your wealth. So your net worth is what really matters. At the end of the day, if you sold everything, how much do you have? So looking at your money this way forces you to look at the big picture. You're not looking week to week on what your weekly budget is or your monthly budget is on something, but you're looking at the entire picture of your personal finance. Realizing what works, what doesn't, what made you money, what's losing or costing you money. And this is really what's going to set you on that trajectory to have a more long-term vision of your personal finances, which is what you need in order to be building wealth. Budgeting forces you to look at the short term. And sometimes short-term decisions aren't the best when it comes to long-term financial gains. So you might be looking at, hey, I've only got X amount of dollars to spend, this month on this particular item. So I'll buy something cheap, not really something that I want, but something that's going to fill that need for the time being. The problem with that is that in 2 or 3 months, that might not fit that need anymore. You might have wore it out or other because it was lower quality, and so you buy something else that also fills that. Whereas if you're looking more long term and less about week to week, you might go out and buy that higher quality item that would serve you for a longer duration of time, and as a result would be a better financial decision than what sort of budgeting and the short-term thinking would allow you to do. So track your net worth every month. This will probably take you about 10 minutes in total to accomplish every month, which isn't much to ask. It'll also get a great conversation going between you and your significant other as it regards to the family finances. And I guarantee you this will set you in a much better mindset than budgeting will when it comes to growing your long-term net worth and engineering your own path to wealth.